Hey folks, so today we're going to talk about drum carders, or specifically I guess my example drum carder I have here. This is a pet green type drum carder. I don't know exactly what model, but it's pretty standard in terms of tines per inch. I've tried to count and I think this is about a 72 tines per inch carding cloth on here, which is suitable for most wools. If you're doing something really coarse, you might go with a more open carding cloth. If you are trying to process really fine cashmere, Angora, I guess maybe alpaca, you might want to go with something a little bit finer. But this is a very versatile kind of carding cloth on here. So this is a hand crank model, just the two drums. You've got the feeder drum and you've got the main drum. And so let's talk about how you feed the fiber in and how you remove it and all of those kinds of details. So I will mostly get out of the picture here so you can see my hands and the fiber going into the machine. Right, so here's our Jacob fleece that I washed up and is all ready to go. So it still has its lock structure pretty much intact. These tips look like they're going to come apart really easily. We don't need to pick this particular fleece really thoroughly in order to get it feeding into the drum carder well. I would say this guy just needs to be opened up a little bit. And you can just pick out any remaining vegetable matter as you go. With drum carding, as opposed to combing, if there is vegetable matter left in the fleece when you feed it in, most of that is just going to end up in the resulting bat. You may find that some finer stuff does fall out and end up on your table underneath the drum carder, but carding is not as reliable a way to remove any vegetable matter as combing is. Got short bits here too, so we'll get those out. Every time you handle the fleece, you probably want to take the opportunity to remove any impurities and things that might impede your spinning, things you don't want in your final product, vegetable matter, short bits. If you get short bits blended into your bat, those are going to be resulting in neps, causing little lumps in your spinning, so we want to try to remove those as much as possible. So we've got this first bit pretty much opened up, so I will start feeding this in the feeding tray here. So you can have a bunch of fiber prepared. You don't want to be presenting too much to the feeder drum at one time. You want to keep it, try to smooth, single layer of fibers transferring from one drum to the other as much as you can. You may find that as you're feeding it in, you see little lumps that you didn't before. You can always pick those out as we go, especially since this is hand cranked. You can stop or change the speed and resume whenever you feel comfortable. Pick a little more fiber, open this up. Little bits off the big drum. Even some more fiber off this. Trying to feed it in a way that it gets applied to the collecting drum, the larger drum, as evenly as possible so that we can get an even application of fiber and a nice consistent bat as a result. Look at those pretty little locks. There's a lump. And you might notice that we get a tiny bit of noise in the process of cranking, but we don't have a lot of metallic grinding type noises, and that's because you want to make sure you have your drums aligned so that they're almost touching, but the tines are not intermeshing when you're turning it. If you're getting a lot of crunchy metallic sounds, then you probably need to adjust your drum carder so that your drums are a little bit further apart, or perhaps they're even just canted a little bit, and you can adjust one side to the other. A good rule of thumb for alignment of your drums on your drum carder is if you can take an index card and you can insert it between the drums, just barely, but it will go between them to make sure you've got just that tiny bit of gap. The tines do not need to intermesh in order for the fibers to be transferred from one drum to the other. Alright, so now that we've got a fair bit of fiber on here, I'm going to just use my flick carder, a very handy tool for a bunch of purposes. I'm just going to use this kind of like a burnishing brush, since this model doesn't have a burnishing brush. And you can see it kind of smooths the surface and packs fibers down a little more. We might do that if we want to see if we can fit a little more fiber on here. Make this a nice thick vat. Do a little more burnishing. We can even use the flick carder to pick some of this stuff up that's stuck on the heater. Give it another chance to apply. Alright, so I'm going to call that the first pass. So in order to remove the fibers from the drum carder, you're going to look for the spot where your carding cloth meets and is affixed to the drum. There should be a little bit of a gap here. And perhaps your carder came with a doffing tool. It's like a metal rod with usually has kind of a hook on the end. I've never had a doffing tool per se, but I find that a hair pick is very handy for working with the drum carder. Not only can you use it like a doffer, I'm left-handed, sorry, I'm giving your way there. I'll try to do this right-handed. But you can come in here and put this under into that channel and loosen these fibers up, just like this. And then come through here and gently work them loose from each other. So this is what you would be using your doffing tool for. We're just using a hair pick instead. And once you've got an opening here, what you're basically doing is just rolling the drum forward a little bit and peeling off your bat. Some folks choose to roll their bat onto something. I don't generally. I just pull the bat off in its entirety. And in any case, this guy's going to want one more pass through the drum carder anyway. I find that generally when I'm working with washed fleece that hasn't been carded yet, I do like to do 2 passes in order to get a nice consistent result and make sure everything is opened up and combined as much as possible. So this doesn't look bad actually for a first pass. But so we're going to send this through another time so that we make sure that we have all the fibers separated. So this is going to be a dream to spin. And when we do the second pass, something I've found very helpful is that if you pull this off in bits, to feed it through the second time, you get a better opening and blending effect if you send these fibers through perpendicular to the way that they came off. So the fibers are aligned vertically here. I'm going to feed them in so they're going across into the drum carder. This will cause the fibers to be pulled apart more in this second pass and make sure we get good separation and alignment. If you do this with a multicolor bat, you may find that running them through sideways on the second pass gets you more thorough color blending for those same reasons, because it's separating those fibers and causing them to realign again. So if you don't want, if you're doing blending rather than just initial carding of a fiber, you may choose, if you need to do a second pass, to run it through lengthwise in order to try to preserve more color separation, depending on the effect you're going for. Okay, here's our last little bit. Probably sent that through a little bit much of the time. Alright, a little burnishing job. So again, pulling this guy off with the hair pick as a doffer. And this Jacob is coming off really nice and easily. You may find that longer fibers are harder to get this initial opening off of the drum carder because just the sheer length of the fiber over which it has friction with its neighbors, and depending on how tightly you've packed fibers here on the drum, you may find it's hard to work that opening. So be careful about applying too much of really long, strong fibers on at a time. You may be trying inadvertently hurting your knuckles and things trying to get that off. So gently peeling this guy off the drum. Alright, so there we have our bat. And you'll see that there still was a little bit of vegetable matter in here, and there it is still in the bat. If you hold this up to the light, you can sometimes see if there's stuck vegetable matter that you might want to try to get out or not, or any remaining clumps that you might want to make another pass to separate. But there's our bat, and I generally just roll these guys up like this, a little wool muffin, and this guy is ready to spin. Alternatively, you can also use the Diz. The Diz, if it were here, we could actually draft right off the drum carder to make a roving type preparation from this bat, which is essentially just a bat that's been drafted out some into a longer continuous stream, if you prefer to work from something like that. But that is the general gist of the drum carder.